All right, guys, welcome along to another episode of the Martin's World podcast. And guys, before I get into introducing today's guest, I'd like to just remind you that if you want to support the show and support the fight for cannabis legalization in Ireland, you can do so by signing up to the patreon.com or making a donation in the form of Bitcoin through a link found on the website martinsworld.ie. All of the funds will be used to establish a cannabis activist hub so we can bring together the cannabis community to not only socialise but to fight for cannabis legalisation in Ireland as it's happening. So guys, on with the guest. Today's guest is Adrienne Lynch, who's also known as the Enlightened Lady Toker on Instagram. Adrienne Lynch suffers with fibromyalgia and she uses medical cannabis to help treat the symptoms of that. She's also a holistic nutrition and lifestyle coach, and she also has certificates for working with medical cannabis and CBD. She's also a mother of a 2-year-old, I believe she said. So yeah, myself and Adrienne have a good old chat about cannabis and cannabis medicines and everything in between that there in relation to Ireland. So guys, sit back, blaze up and enjoy. Adrienne, welcome along to Martin's World podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you as a guest. I first read your story on the Green Lens blog, and that's first when I became aware of yourself out there as another ally in this campaign for cannabis legalization. So welcome along to the show. You're also doing some nutrition and lifestyle coaching as well. So you've certainly got a lot to add to this campaign. So if you want to add in a little bit more about yourself that I might have forgot.
Yeah, sure. So like basically what I do with my online stuff is I'm really trying to normalize cannabis use. You know, I am a mother. I have a 2-year-old daughter. And I think as a mother, we're often, judged so harshly that we should behave this way, that way, and that's the only way it is to be a good mother. The reality is, if I went and I was taking what the pharma were suggesting I take for my autoimmune, I would not be able to be a good mother. I wouldn't be able to function properly. Cannabis really allows me to do that. So I'm very, very passionate about it. I'm very passionate about normalizing it. Like when I see all my friends cheersing a glass of wine, or they're like bragging of doing their shots online, look at how many Jaeger bombs, whatever I can do, and I can't like blow clouds to my friends. I'm not having that anymore. So I was just like, okay, I'm here tonight. I want to normalize this a little bit because
Mhm.
I don't want to feel like a criminal anymore, because it's absolute insanity to feel like a criminal for a plant.
It
So
is
yeah, and then
ridiculous.
I got into my nutrition, and then we find out like how much nutrition and THC, CBD, how it all interacts, and our body is built to receive this in the same way it's built to receive nutrition and vitamins and all these different things, and sometimes we get a little bit out of whack, or homeostasis goes out of whack, and that's where that wonderful cannabis plant comes in and brings us back to that.
Well, that is
So
probably one of the best things about it is how it just brings things back into a kind of a balance, a center, and it definitely works with the body as well. It's shown through evidence in science that
yeah,
the receptors are most abundant actually in our kind of autoimmune system, all
yeah,
throughout it. So it's an incredibly important system, and the way
yeah.
in which the cannabinoids react with that. We still need to learn and understand, because with yourself, as you just talked about there, you've autoimmune conditions which
Hmm.
effectively are the body attacking itself.
Yeah,
Yours comes in the form of rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, if memory
yeah,
serves correct. So
that's
you,
it. Yeah.
you would have been on some very strong medications
Oh yeah.
for them. And
Yeah.
you talked about the fact that you're a mother, and as a mother, and how did those medications, like your mother of 2-year-old now, so I'd imagine you probably weren't on them for very long being
No.
a mother, because you found cannabis thankfully. But
Oh well.
how would you have compared that, like the life on those medications trying to be a mother versus a life with cannabis as a medication and being a mother?
Well, like when I first got diagnosed with my autoimmune disease and the fibromyalgia, they basically said I couldn't be a mother, that my body wouldn't be able for it. And I'd say the only reason it wouldn't have been able for it is if I had stayed on all the medications that they were prescribing me. So like I first started on those medications when I was 18, 19, and I lost about 10 years of my life. I mean, I 100% was completely reliant on sleeping tablets, yet not sleeping at all. So trying to think about how I was functioning, because I haven't taken pharma now for about over 3 years. I've been completely exclusively cannabis for 3 years now, and I was weaning off for about 2 years prior to that. And if I think about trying to be a mother at that time, it just wouldn't have been possible. I was in and out of hospital every month for about a few days. I was sick constantly. I wasn't making the recoveries. The flare-ups were worse. There's just no way I would have been able to be a mother at that point, or at least even feel good about being a mother at that point, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, you talked there about weaning off. Like that's kind of something that goes with these medications. That there
Yeah,
actually is a kind of a in a known regimen like that. It's tough
yeah,
to get off these prescription
yeah.
medications that they have you on. A lot of the times, people stay on these for their entire life because the condition is like one it's just a treatable condition. It's not curable. So that's it's great that you found cannabis, but as you said there, you've been using it now for 3 years, and you've been a mother for two of those years. Um, what would your reaction be to the story that was shared there? It kind of went a bit viral again over the media. It was the woman named Caitlin. I think she's from Canada, but
Hmm.
her headline made her news made headlines, I think, in Australia and across other places as well. And it was like a mother who uses cannabis. Like it was very much focused on the fact that she used cannabis as a mother, and it was. What would your reaction be to that when you read the headline?
So I haven't seen that one,
You
but
didn't see
like,
that.
I mean, I'm sure there's countless headlines like that, you know, and I'm sure there's been countless headlines like that about mothers in many different forms throughout the years. I mean, we have a horrendous history here of how we treat mothers or single mothers. So, you know, I'm expecting shit to come at me,
Mhm.
feedback of negative, you know, but I'm prepared for it and I'm
Yeah.
okay with it because I prefer to be myself and present myself as myself and show that I'm not a bad person because I smoke cannabis. I'm not a bad mother because I smoke cannabis. People can write whatever they want. That's not going to change that. But it is very difficult coming up against those things.
Mhm.
And I feel sorry for any mother that has to face that judgment because it's just so wrong. Like, you know, when they say, oh, she's high on cannabis, like when I think about being high, the pharmaceutical drugs and what they did to me, that was high. When I'm like consuming cannabis, I'm functioning and nobody would be going, gee, she's out of her head. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
when I used to drink alcohol, like I would have blackouts. You know, how's that with cannabis? How can I be a mother when I can't even like stand up straight? You
Yeah.
know, from alcohol. It just to me it makes no sense. So if people want to judge me and they want to come at me with things, it's more a reflection on them and their lack of understanding of cannabis, and that's just the way I'll view it.
Yeah, and do you fear any like as you said that they might target you? Do you think the authorities at all would target you because of your being vocal about your cannabis use, despite it being for a medical reason? Because we kind of know that our government really don't respect that at all. Like the medicinal cannabis access program, you don't even fall into the three
Qualify.
conditions. Yeah,
No,
unfortunately, so you've no choice but to go on the black market. Did you fear being targeted by the authorities,
of
like social
course,
services or anything?
absolutely, yeah,
That is a worry.
100%. And you know, but it's something. Look, I've come up against this kind of stuff before. I lived in Uganda with my ex-girlfriend, where it was illegal to be gay, and I worked on LGBTI pride there. When you believe in something that you know is wrong, that a law is wrong, you have to fight against it, whether you fear authorities coming after you or not, because the reality is I believe so much in this that I'm willing to stand up and put myself at risk, because I think if the authorities got me, you know, or came after me or targeted me, the reality is they're tearing a family up for
Yeah.
nothing, for a plant. And I will be vocal about it. I will show the whole prospect of what they'll be doing to my life. So because that's the reality. You have to shine a light on these things. You can't just accept a draconian, outdated law. Like in 1989, a Supreme Court judge here described homosexuality that if they legalized it, it would be like the flu and everybody would catch it. So, you know, and we're laughing about
Oh
that
my
20 years
God.
later. We will be laughing about the same law about cannabis in 20 years' time.
But
We
that's
will.
kind of what they're
It's,
saying about cannabis legalization.
yeah,
We
I
legalize
know.
cannabis, everybody's going to be addicted to cannabis. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'm sorry, like already have issues with alcohol. That's legal. But you know, people go, they used to go in the Dáil in their lunch breaks and have a pint in the pub in the Dáil, and that was
Right.
okay because it was illegal. It's like, so if it is legal and everybody does start smoking weed, know what? It's legal. We're adults. We're allowed to do these things.
Yeah, no, it is.
Don't get it.
It's complete hypocrisy to be told one thing from a government who, at one point in time, they were embroiled in controversy because of a late night debate that was happening around abortion bill. Actually, I believe, if memory serves correctly, and
Yeah.
one of the drunken TDs in the dial pulled a female TD onto his lap, and
Yeah.
this was all live on the Oireachtas TV, and the lads are pissed up there, like having a grand crack for themselves. And meanwhile, they're passing legislation that labels me and you a criminal because
Yeah.
I use cannabis, like, not for any severe condition or anything, but it definitely improves my quality of life. But you use
Yeah.
it for real medical conditions, and it really does improve the quality of your life, and it gives you an alternative to those life-destroying
Yeah.
pharmaceuticals that you talked about.
Absolutely.
It's just crazy. That's kind of why I'm at the point now. I don't believe in get like, I don't know if you've seen the responses that Gino Kenny got recently from Frank Feighan in the Dáil in relation to legalizing
Okay.
cannabis, and he talked about a health-led approach. But his health-led
Yeah.
approach involves keeping prohibition in place where cannabis is
Mm.
sold by criminals. I'm just like, we can't engage with these guys any longer. I'm sorry, but civil disobedience for me is the only way forward. Like, I know yourself, you don't view what you're doing as civil disobedience, but I think what you're doing, like, you're talking openly about your cannabis use, that is a form of civil
Oh,
disobedience
no,
in
it is
itself.
civil
It
disobedience.
certainly is. Um,
Yeah.
I think,
Activism is a form of civil disobedience, and it is there for a reason, and I believe we all have our forms and our
mhm,
ways of doing that within the community. Like for me, it's about normalizing as a woman and a mother. For
mhm.
you, you have your resources of bringing the plant to the police officer and being like, see,
Yeah,
it's just a plant, and you have your ways. And Nicole, like from Cork Cannabis Activist Network, she does amazing work as
yeah,
well. Like, and
no,
there's so many people working so hard in this community, and if we can all work together, like we can stand up against them, but it's just so hard when we're separated and we're hidden in these behind these laws. Um,
well, there's so
and
so
then
much fear
COVID
and
happened.
stigma there as well within our community.
Yeah,
For a long time, we're all fearful of one another because a lot of the times that's how our guards operate, is through
yeah,
snitches. And if somebody knows that you have a bit of cannabis, there's a likelihood
yeah,
somebody could snitch on you for wanting getting off. Because that's what happened with myself. Not that somebody snitched on me, but when I got stopped and searched by the cops, every time they gave me an opportunity, where did you get the cannabis? Tell me who you got it off, and we'll make this go away. You don't even have to go to court. Like that's how our guards operate. So that puts fear within our community of one another. So it was very hard for us to
yeah,
get united then because of that. But then when we
yeah.
are united, for me, I've campaigned for 13 years now, unfortunately. I'm just at a point where I'm just very vocal. I'm very forward, and I've campaigned with people who I've scared them, unfortunately, away from me because of, say, my forwardness of being so open about my cannabis use, and willingness to go forward and challenge the law by going and present myself to be arrested. Because I think that's how we have to take away the legitimacy of the law, is by
Yeah.
just openly break. Like, it's great doing it online and those things, but I think if we just really engage with the system, go down to the guard station numbers, that's how we're really going to send a message to the guys at top. As
Mm.
Nicole from Cork you brought her up. She's been doing. I believe, I don't know, she had 100 days now or whatever is the Twitter campaign behind Frank Feighan.
103, I think, is today. I
103.
think
Yeah,
it's
there you go.
103
And
days.
he's ignored all of that, the whole lot of that. Like, it's so easy for him to ignore that. And I don't know how Nicole takes that, but for me, that would eat me up inside. That would kill me knowing I'm doing that. And I know she's getting a great message out there, but unfortunately, she's getting it largely in an echo chamber, to people who've already received it. And it's just
Oh,
so
I
easy.
don't know about that now, because like the end of the day, when there is activism and there's any sort of a movement, we all have a part to play and we all do it in our own way. You have your way of doing
Yeah.
it, like I have my way of doing it, and not everybody's able to do it in the same way. We all have things to deal with in our life. We have different parts of our personality that are able to work in different ways. Like for me, like what Nicole has done and the way she has brought so much information together for people to see really is helping to bring the stigmatization down, because like there's a place now where people can go and they can go, okay, well, this is something I want to break down. Like she has the thing about the IQ and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and you can share that, and then like if somebody is challenging you on something, you have a place to go to pull the
Yeah,
information. That is so important and so useful,
definitely
because
is.
one of the ways we do make activism work is through conversation. I mean, we saw that with the same-sex campaign. I was very much heavily involved with that. Conversations with the different generations were so important, and having those information to pull from, it makes all the difference, you know, because that's often when you're having conversation with people and people challenge you with these stigmatized that they're hearing and they're seeing in the news, and you're going, how do I bring that challenge? Like, how do I say, well, that's not true because I have this information? That's what Nicole has done. So I think we all have a really important role to play. And like, we have, obviously, you had Natalie on as well. Like, Natalie is amazing with her legal knowledge, you know, and okay, we all will eventually get back to working together when COVID isn't as bad, but like, at least we're all doing something that is bringing this attention. And, you know, we have to also see that we have different types of followers. Like, a lot of mothers might relate to me, but they might not relate to you. A lot of your followers might not relate to me. And that's why we're all so important in this movement, you know?
Yeah. No, and I'm definitely not discrediting anything that the Cork Cannabis Activist Network was doing, Nicole. But what I was thought about is how she gets ignored by Frank Feighan, by
Oh
Stephen
yeah,
Donnelly,
and it's
like how
frustrating.
disheartening that must be and what that must do to a person. It's terrible, but because what we do end up doing, we do end up creating networks, communities within ourselves, like where we are arming each other with great bits of information, you know, the infographics that's come out of Cork Cannabis Activist Network, they're great. They're very useful. But it'd be great. You know, what really annoys me is just that Frank Feighan has never once responded. You know, like he should have. You know, he done his 100 days of walking. Come on, like 100 days of tweeting to him, like and not to give a response. Like, surely, I don't know. But fair play to her. Like she has a lot more
Maybe we should do
patience than me
100 days of
anyway.
sending him clouds. Maybe we
Yeah,
should do
yeah.
100 days of sending him clouds every day.
Have a
We'll
big
all
smoke up
every
outside
day
his
roll a
office.
joint and send Frank Fay clouds on Twitter. Why don't we do that? Fuck
Yeah,
it.
I'd say we just have a
Is my
smoke up
language.
outside his office.
Yeah. You know, I mean, like, there's ways to do these things. I know COVID's kind of getting in the way, but we could send clouds to Frank every day. I'd happily send clouds to Frank every day. Be like, come on, join the sesh, Frank.
Yeah, definitely. But even in that, actually, I suppose sending clouds, I suppose that's something that's interesting. You brought that up because, like, you smoke your cannabis and it's a medicine, but that's kind of counterintuitive to how you might think of medicines. You know, because smoking anything is not good for us. Like combustion, it's not really good. So there's certainly a need for more education done, and that's not to look down or to stigmatize anybody. It's just that it's when you think of medication, you wouldn't think of somebody hitting a
Yeah,
bong.
but I've researched, you know, the medicinal uses of THC, and I'm
Yeah.
certified in it. And THC is actually something that they're using as a treatment for asthma because it works within our lungs to encourage better lung capacity and better lung use. So that again is just something that's created by stigmas. That's not true. But unfortunately, in Ireland, we tend to mix our cannabis with tobacco, and
There
that's
we go.
not
I'm
good.
delighted you brought that up. Yes.
And it's
Do you
disgusting.
mix?
I'm sorry.
Do you mix? No,
I haven't
yes.
mixed in like 10 years. I did at the very, very start because I didn't know any better and everybody else was doing it. And then I was like, this is disgusting.
And what
So
would
no,
you
I'm
say?
a
I
pure,
suppose
pure, pure.
people would always say, anytime I bring this up to people, they would always say to me, "Oh, I could never afford to smoke pure." How would you respond to those people?
That's why I have a bong.
Yes.
You
Mine
find a
too.
way to make it affordable. It's just you can't just like include tobacco because that makes no. You're just literally causing yourself lung problems. If you smoke it with tobacco, please stop.
And is that
And
one of the
also, you're
boozy
not getting
bongs?
the flavor of cannabis. Like, cannabis is so gorgeous. Why would you ruin it with tobacco?
Well, that's true too, actually. But if once you start, I've a volcano, and once you start vaporizing,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then you really start to get the taste because you can
Yeah.
target specific terpenes and everything with the temperatures. Oh, it's a fine art, actually. I wish
Yeah.
I could. I wish I had an endless supply of cannabis there so I could just
Oh,
experiment all day
same.
long.
The one day dream.
Yeah. Hopefully someday. Can I ask, when you were showing your bong there, was that one of the doozy bongs? Was it?
It's a Chong's.
Oh, the Chong's bong. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
my little mini one.
Yeah, that's
because
already too
I
long.
use it throughout the day. I have a bigger one, and then but the bigger one I save special occasions in case I break it, because my toddler loves to break my bongs on a
Mhm.
regular occasion. But the hemp company have always been so good to me to like provide me with replacements, and anytime I go in, and they don't slag me too much about it either. So
Yeah, I think we're definitely some of the same there. I've had mine broke. I have two daughters myself as well, and
yeah,
we've definitely had multiple bonds broken over the years, getting knocked and things like that. So
yeah, that's it.
it'll be a bit of an issue.
Oh, great
Um,
fun.
can, can I ask for yourself? Have you ever applied for the ministerial license for cannabis access?
No, and I think I at this point, out of protest, I wouldn't, because
Excellent.
even the fact that they use the word compassionate, it's just, I mean, I feel like I need to, screenshot the word compassionate in the dictionary, in the encyclopedia, and like send it to them individually so that they actually understand what the word compassionate is, because clearly they don't.
Yeah. No, it is ridiculous. Like the current access program, I've a protest planned there for next month where there's a patient who had a license, and he's after giving back his license now because he wasn't able to afford the medicine anymore because they weren't reimbursing it for him. So I'm traveling up to him and I'm going to give him some cannabis in the Garda
Good,
station, and that'll be the civil disobedience protest for the next
brilliant.
one. And it'll just highlight the injustice there that a person who once had a ministerial license but wasn't able to maintain it because of the extortionate price that was there, and it wouldn't really be there because if cannabis wasn't so prohibited, say if somebody like myself, I have an honours degree in herbal science, if I was able to set up a little cannabis collective where I was able to grow cannabis for patients
Yeah,
at a cost price, do you know, where they just paid for like the bare minimum, like, and
yeah.
as opposed to them getting it from Bedrocan or Tilleray, where they're just like a serious markup because of how prohibitive the cannabis actually is. Like, how would you, like, how do you get your cannabis currently? Is it the dark web, or do you
So
a
no,
local
I've
grower?
had the same person for 10 years now. And I'm really lucky that I have, because they get it to me when I'm sick. Now there's been times, during lockdown and stuff, that they just didn't have it, and I was really struggling to get it because I need it daily. I can't actually eat without my cannabis. My stomach doesn't function properly. So it's essential for me, and I'm
And
really lucky. But haven't always been lucky, and not everyone is as lucky. And if you
mhm,
are sick and you're trying to find somebody to get you THC, because that's the only thing that works for anti-spasm, then like it's an awful situation to be in.
yeah,
It's
and
scary. It's
can you tell me,
concerning. It's
does that person grow it themselves, or do they import
no.
it? They import it.
I have no idea,
Oh, you
unfortunately.
don't have
They're
an idea.
not,
Okay.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
inquire that deeply with it. We're
Okay.
just very, loyal for 10 years, but
So there's a lot of trust there. So really, you kind of
yeah,
trust the person that they're going to be giving you a quality product, and whether they're
yeah.
growing or importing it, you don't really know. Do they tell you what kind of strains you're getting, or
So yeah, and
sometimes?
they usually give me an offering of like an indica or sativa, but
Oh, nice.
indica sativa, they're more just obviously more dominant because they're all hybrids these days. But
Hmm.
yeah, so and because I struggle with sleep, I'll tend to get more of an indica because I can't afford to buy a bit of each.
Hmm.
And then I'll put like some CBD or some CBG with it, and then that kind of takes the effects off a little bit for during the day and stuff. I mean, it's just about knowing what you're doing.
Hmm.
And if people were allowed to have access to the information, or if doctors were trained in this, then it would be so much better, but they're not.
What would it do to you in the morning if your dealer, don't call him a dealer, your plant distributor,
That I like.
yeah, what would it mean to you in the morning if you no longer had access to that person? Say if the authorities had caught up with him and taken him off the streets,
I'd be screwed
you'd
because
be
I'd have
screwed.
to go searching. I currently don't have a car. I have a 2 year old, and I have to go and go through like the parks of Dublin to try and find somebody who can give me some, and hope that it's safe and all. I mean, it's
No.
just ridiculous to think to put people through that.
Hmm. Yeah, it would be backwards. It really would set you back. That you're relying on somebody who the media would have no problem. Like let's just say for argument's sake, plant distributor had a kilo of plant material, that they would parade him on the media as some big time dealer. Oh, Gardaí carry out successful raid, you know, and they shot his dog too,
And
sure. Be great.
yeah, they're such decent people. Like, I mean, this person is so decent to me. The way
Mhm.
they have always brought it over. There's been times that I'm getting out of hospital and I need it immediately, and they're coming over like with it.
Lovely.
Like, that's so decent, you know. And that's why I always stay loyal to people who are decent. I'll stay loyal to
Yeah.
anytime, all the time, you
I'll
know.
never forget a
And
time
so
when I was about 18, at 17, 18 at the time, and there was an older lady living in a parkway not far from me now. But I'd say she was in like her 70s, 80s it was, and it was my cousin put me in contact with her, and she was looking for cannabis because it helped her with whatever condition she had, arthritis, and
mhm.
she'd suffered with sleeping issues then as well, and she was talking about how great cannabis was. So my cousin brought me over anyway one time because look, I was selling back then, and I gave her some cannabis. She was trying to trade me her prescription medication for her into cannabis. I was like, no, I'm not into that stuff at all. But it was just very interesting. Like that, me, I was only 17, 18 at the time. Like, and here I was
Wow.
giving this woman who could have been in her 80s. Like, I don't know what age she was. She was very old anyway, and I was giving her medicine, like effectively, I was giving her
Yeah,
medicine.
you
So
were, yeah.
it's when I think back at it now, how wrong that kind of is. That's what prohibition does. It's like you have young
Mm.
kids. Like, I was a young kid. I didn't know what I was. I had cannabis. That's all I knew about what it
Yeah,
was.
that's
I
all you
I
knew.
bought it from some other guy,
Yeah.
and I'm giving it to this old lady, and it's just what a messed up system that is. And we're still in that right now today, where the drug dealers have gotten even younger. Like I think the youngest drug
Yeah.
dealer in Dublin is like 12.
Yeah, I mean, I've had that. Like during the lockdown, I got in touch with somebody, you know, you find them over Instagram or whatever, or one of the social media things, and I was like, okay, and they were selling, I think it was 4 grams in the 50 bags, but they were only selling by 50 bags because that was like lockdown. That was what happened in the pandemic lockdown. It was really difficult for, I'm sure, anybody who was sick. So I went over anyway. The person that handed to me was like a child, like 16 maybe, and I was like, "Oh, this is wrong. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be contributing to this. But this is not an issue of drugs. This is an issue of prohibition, and it is an issue of societal classing and attacking of them. Do you know? Because like I've said this time and time again, I've used this example and I always do because for me it shows the absolute hypocrisy in law and in law enforcement and in lawyers who, you know, who basically put criminals behind bars, drug dealers behind bars. So like I was studying law in Trinity and I'm like at this party, like street party, and I look around and there's like the whole of the law society around me, and they're all passing white around, cocaine and pills. And I'm like, and I'm just smoking my J's like I do. And that's all I'm interested in. And they're passing it around, you know. I'm going, these motherfuckers, excuse me, these people are literally going to go and finish their law degree and they're going to continue buying these drugs while they're going to put those people who are selling those drugs away. Like, how is that okay? And they never get drug tested or anything in their jobs. Yet I have friends who do menial jobs and they're getting tested, drug tested. For what? What do they do in their job that is going to cause anybody harm if they're high on weed or they smoked weed the night before? But it's okay for a lawyer to be taking cocaine like up to 4 or 5 hours before they go into court.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a power move, and it's another way of discriminating against us because we all know with these drug testing in these workplaces, it's largely cannabis that gets detected. If you're a cocaine user, you could go out and do cocaine on a Friday and a Saturday night and piss clean on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
Whereas with cannabis, it's much more difficult. And it's always been brought up to me numerous times. I've had people say to me, I have a friend who's a guard, I have a friend who's a solicitor, and they love the cocaine. They love
Yeah.
cocaine. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm not surprised at all that people tell me this. It's crazy because even during prohibition of alcohol in the US, the agents of prohibition used to go back to their own prohibition
Yeah, of course,
parties,
to
like where they
drink.
used to be drinking, like
Yeah,
with the agents of prohibition. It's like, oh man,
it doesn't work.
all of this stuff is out there for people to read. Like, it's like I'm not making this up. Like
No,
the
none
agents
of
of
this is
prohibition
made
actually
up.
had
This
drink
is
parties.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And prohibition only works for the people who are in upper class.
Yeah, that's it. And can I ask? I suppose you talked about the fact you're a mother and everything, and you're doing a course now to nutrition and coaching. If you were to be caught with cannabis, let's say coming back from your plant distributor, like what would that do to you and your life? Like how would that make you feel, the thoughts of an upcoming court case? Have you ever found yourself in that situation? If you have,
I haven't currently, like, with,
thankfully,
I haven't been like, it hasn't happened that it's been
good.
in, I was caught in Uganda, and
With
they
cannabis.
started trying to, with cannabis. I was caught smoking cannabis at a reggae gig in Uganda. So
That's
I was like smoking a joint at a reggae gig. I mean, seriously. And the Ugandan police caught me, and they accused me of smoking crack cocaine.
whoa, that's quite a jump.
Yeah, well, I think that was probably more about a bribe than anything,
Yeah.
so
What was it,
I don't
rolled
know.
up, or did you have a pipe?
Yeah, it was in a split. Or they was on the ground. I saw them coming. I dropped it and like put
Uh,
my foot on it. Like, I mean, you couldn't even see what it is, but they were just like, "You were smoking crack cocaine."
yeah.
I was like, "I was what?"
Here, just take my money and go. Is this pretty much what happened? Is it?
Oh my God. Well, no, actually, a friend of mine, who was a lawyer, was there with me, a trans guy. And so that was a little scary because I didn't know how well that was going to be received, but he thankfully like sorted it out. And then I had like another friend of mine who was like a rich friend who happened to be on cocaine and nearly made the whole thing really shit because, most people on cocaine just really aren't the best people to deal
Yeah,
with.
we were two hands on.
Yeah, it was a little too much. So it was like, why don't you just go over there for a little bit and let us deal with this?
Lovely.
But I do live in fear of that happening here.
Mm.
But I think that's why I came out and why I started doing what I'm doing, because I don't want to live in fear in the shadows, especially when I don't feel like I'm actually doing anything wrong. But it is, again, it is, at the end of the day, it has gotten to me. I am actually going to leave Ireland this year because of it.
Oh no.
I'm going to go to Spain, but I'm going to continue fighting. I'll be back and forth here. My health just can't take another
Mhm.
winter in Ireland when I have not got actual proper access to cannabis.
Yeah.
So but like I believe in this cause. I'm never going to give up on it. I'm never going to give up fighting. Never going to give up showing my life with cannabis and that it's completely fine and normal and I'm not harming
Mm.
anybody. I'm doing good, not bad. So, but yeah, of course I live
You'll
with
be
that. And I'm
joining
sure there's a lot that live with it.
you'll be joining Alicia so in Spain as another kind of Irish citizen
Refugee.
in exile. Yeah, a refugee
Yeah.
of medical cannabis, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But because even I suppose between, like, it's only a 2 hour journey, but you happen to play in two
Mhm.
hours and you're in Spain.
Yeah.
That's great and all, but it's worlds of different. Like that they've got the right to grow over there, which is
Yeah.
monumental. Like and I think we're entitled to that same right to grow here. We just have to fight for it.
Yes.
Because it was based upon their constitution, the right to privacy, and a couple of other things. They fought for about 20 years through the courts to get to where they are. What an amazing achievement. But over there, I think
Absolutely.
it's you'll be getting cannabis for maybe 5 to 10 euro a gram, where it's a hair it's
So
about
yeah, I
25.
have a friend over there right now, and I got sent a picture this morning. They got 100 grams for €300.
Oh my God, that's for 3 euro a
Three
gram.
euro a
That's
gram.
amazing. That's great. Like for a patient, what that would mean, that's excellent.
Life
Because
changing.
how much would
Life
you
changing.
use per day, say, just to keep your symptoms at bay?
So I'm really struggling at the moment because I've been in a really bad flare up. So when I'm not in a flare up, the minimum I need is like a half an ounce, but that's all I can afford. So when I'm in
Okay.
a flare up, I can't get more than a half an ounce, even though I need more than a half an ounce. When you look at most patients who are chronic pain sufferers, the average is about an ounce a week.
hmm And so
That's
we,
what it works out at.
yeah, yeah, I
So
think
I'm
it's
not
about,
able to get.
I think Health Canada or something recommends somewhere in the regions of like 3 to 4 grams a day,
Today.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, a day. So yeah, that's not
yeah,
far off that ounce
yeah.
there as well. So that's a lot. And how much is an ounce then for yourself? Hopefully your dealer does you a good deal.
No, unfortunately, there's
uh,
no good deals in that world. I
yeah,
wish. So I pay €180 every single week.
and that's for the half ounce. That's for a half ounce. Okay, and that's only just about keeping you going. Then if you have a flare up like
Barely.
that's bare, that's
Yeah.
not going to do it.
No.
Yeah. That's
Thankfully, like I've
unfortunate.
had some good friends who come up and, they share with me what they've got, but like we're all struggling.
Hmm.
We're all, and that's medical people I'm talking about who are my friends who will come up, they're medical consumers too. But
Hmm.
we all have to take care of each other,
Yeah.
But we're all struggling. We are all struggling, and that's just the truth.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, and there's people then like making massive profits off the back of it.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that the raids recently. It's a
Oh,
real
they just,
indicator as to well how much cannabis is actually being consumed out there. It's crazy. And I would love to really have a good idea as to how many people are self medicating like yourself on the black market, because I think there's a lot. And it's unfortunate when we see these raids, we don't attribute that like, oh, that's actually a percentage of that as a patient's medicine. Like,
yeah,
there's no denying that. That's what prohibition has done. It's made
yeah,
patients rely on the black market, and now we have
yeah,
the guards who are basically parading the stuff online, thinking they're doing great. But meanwhile,
yeah,
there's patients like if you weren't able to get it now, you would probably be in tears looking at those posts, thinking like, here I
absolutely.
am flaring up in pain, and here's the
Yeah.
boys about to destroy that stuff.
I have been in tears looking at those things in the past. Like, absolutely, there's been times, and like, there's endless issues like with that. Like even if I'm thinking from a female perspective, like, I mean, I've had women come to me, and I've had the experiences myself where they've been like, I live now. I'm lucky. I'm in Dublin, and but if you're in a small town in rural Ireland and there's one source, and that source is a dickhead,
Hmm.
you're screwed. Like for a girl, I've had girls come to me saying there's only one dealer in it and they are suffering with endometriosis, but there's guys saying, well, for sexual favors and all these different things. So the levels of different issues that women face in prohibition as well is different too.
Hmm.
There's the levels of that men face from being beaten and different things like that or being robbed. Again, there's just prohibition just creates so many problems. And when I was on News Talk recently, and that guy was, giving all of the ex-guard of drug enforcement, everything he was describing and talking about, he was part of the problem with the prohibition because
Hmm.
he was saying drugs rip like people's lives apart. No, your drug enforcement agents going into that family and ripping them apart and locking somebody up for plant use or for living in an area and getting involved in the only opportunities available to them. It's just wrong. And
Yeah.
they're part of the problem, but they're indoctrinated and conditioned to believe in what they're doing.
Yeah. No,
And I'm just
I've
basically
I
sprouting
certainly
bullshit.
I faced a lot of that stigma myself. As I say, I've two kids myself, and I've had situations where people have claimed that, oh, I care more about my campaigning and my cannabis use over I do with my kids because of my unwillingness to give up and like how prepared I am to be one locked up, but two, if the authorities come and target me and try to keep me away from my kids because of it, like I'm prepared for that. I'm prepared for the battle. That does not mean that I don't care about my kids, and it doesn't mean that they're not the number one priority in my life. Of course they are, but like this is something that's it's inhibiting my ability in order to be a more effective father, and like my
Yeah,
ability to get a job. It's hindered now because I have a criminal conviction
exactly.
for possessing cannabis. That's
Yeah.
not fair on my kids to have a dad who's less well off in life because of simply possessing like what's here, like a little bit of cannabis herb. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense. And it's wrong, and at the end of the day, if anybody asks you those questions, I would say to them, you're missing the point. I'm
mhm,
doing this because I'm a dedicated father, because I believe so much in a better world for my children growing up. And I don't want them to have to face these same issues of prohibition or judgment over a plant. So that's how I would see it. But like, people are going to come at you like that. They're going to have their judgments, their stigmas. So just keep strong and just don't let them get at you because you're fighting the right fight.
yeah, no, and definitely, I think we all do, and I think the tide is certainly turning now. I think there's a massive momentum building online, and I can't
Yeah,
wait for the day when restrictions are lowered because had
yeah,
we not had restrictions in place for the little Collins raids, I think once JP was going back down to open that Kilkenny
yeah.
store, there would have been a
We would
huge
have been there.
crowd. There would have been the whole
Yeah,
community outside of there
we would have all
supporting,
been there.
waiting for,
Yeah,
for the cops. So it's just very unfortunate that this momentum is building up at a time when we're so restricted and getting out
you
there
know.
engaging. but that's not holding me back. I'm still I'm trying to lead the way and show people how we can still protest effectively under these lockdowns, going out there on your own, unfortunately, but maybe with two or
Yeah.
three people down to the local Garda station with a little bit of flour, CBD flour, if you will, and yeah, we engage them with it. What were your thoughts? Did you happen to see some of those protests that I did at all?
Yeah, I saw one. I think I retweeted one. I mean, there's, I think, like I said, every part of protest that we're doing is important and proves a point. You are showing them, look, this is a plant. Like, I think the one I saw, you went up with the pot and there was like the little plant was starting to grow out of it.
Yeah.
She was so pretty. And but like those sorts of things, they do show this is just a plant.
Mhm.
And sometimes they do just need to be shown these things and for it to be broken down in that way. And the more you do it, the more it breaks it down. First time we do anything is always shocking. There's always that shock factor. But the more you do it, the more it normalizes
Yeah,
it. So
it certainly does.
fair
Um,
play.
yeah, no, thanks very much.
But,
Can I ask, just you've been to Amsterdam and
oh yeah.
have you ever been to Spain before and experienced the market there? Oh, you
No,
haven't. Okay, I was going to
no.
ask, would you be
I
able to
wish.
compare between?
I've not been really so like I kind of lived in Uganda, I lived in the US. I've been to Vegas and I went into a few dispensaries there. Now
Okay.
that was fun, and that is like being, a kid in a candy store with all the different options and talking to people who know what they're talking about and feeling open and free.
Mhm.
Like that is the best feeling I think of all. And then leaving there and just being like, I can just puff away on my vaporizer, I don't have to think about anything, and so
Yeah, yeah,
it's
that
it's
is
a
something
lovely
that 'cause it holds you back here in conversations. Like certainly even myself when I went and done college and stuff, you have this part of you that you're keeping
feeling.
locked and hidden away. Oh, you can't talk about my cannabis use because straight away if you do, people are gonna like, oh, he's just a stoner. Oh, he's just, he loves
Yeah.
Bob Marley. Just start labeling you with all these kind of like a lot of the times like not really negative, but they are by and large negative connotations. Like like even Mary Cannon stuff there, like trying to
Oh,
say that yeah, there you go, like trying to say cannabis use lowers your IQ. It's like, oh man, this lady, oh, so annoying.
he needs to read a new book, you
uh,
know. He needs to read some new books,
yeah,
educate herself a little bit more, uh, maybe move away from the Bible a little bit.
yeah, definitely.
Although, they smoked a lot in the Bible too.
They did. I
They
had
just don't talk about that part of the Bible, but they did
yeah, I,
because,
I had
prohibition of
Reverend
cannabis is only 100 years in. So,
Danny Nemu on the podcast in episode 12, I think it was, and
oh, deadly.
yeah, he talks all about like the different drugs that are hidden in the Bible, but cannabis is one of them under the name cannabisum. So it's certainly in there. The drugs have
Yeah,
been a part of human culture forever. Prohibition has only been this new thing over the last 80 years. If
not
anything,
even.
we're fighting for return to the norm, and the prohibition
Yeah.
is not the norm.
It's
So
why
we're
it's such a weird world we're in the last, I mean, if you look at the history of the last 80 years and all the things that have happened, it's been a really weird 80 years,
certainly
you
has.
know? Like prohibition of alcohol didn't last long, but this drug prohibition and like for me personally, like going forward, I think the prohibition of all drugs needs to be lifted, not
Mhm.
just cannabis. And my long-term goal is to really work within therapy with people and psychedelics and help heal
Yes.
trauma because it's one of the best ways you can heal trauma.
Mhm.
And I don't understand why people are so afraid of opening up connections in their brains. I mean, our brains have so much potential that we just are afraid to tap into, I think, in so many ways. But
Yeah, it's really powerful
there's so
there,
many healing
those.
properties from the earth.
But you've obviously seen the images of the brain when it's just normal, and then the brain
Yeah,
on mushrooms and the brain on
yeah.
LSD, and it's just showing the
DMT and all these different things.
interconnectiveness
Yeah,
of the different parts of the brain, how it opens up communication channels
yeah,
within the brain, that it just puts the
yeah.
brain into a kind of hyperdrive almost like of communication within itself, and what that does
It
for the
breaks
individual.
patterns,
What
you
was
know.
yeah, yeah.
It breaks patterns because our brain follows patterns. And
Mhm.
so if it's so used to doing something and then this like trauma happens and our brain's used to following this
Yeah.
pattern, but this new thing has happened so that the pattern doesn't work for that. If you take something like mushrooms or whatever that opens up a new pattern of connection, it allows you to find new ways to heal, for your brain to find new ways to function and deal with the things that have happened, you know?
Do you do you envision hoping to get the work with psychedelics someday within your life coaching kind of therapy? Yeah,
Definitely.
excellent. So,
Long term.
you've been following some of the work that's been obviously going on. So in places like Canada, and
Yeah.
even in Oregon now, where they've decriminalized all drugs, but they went one
Yeah.
further and they've went and legalized the therapeutic use
Yeah.
of mushrooms as well. I
And
think
DMT, I think, as well. They did as
MDMA.
well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried EMT?
No, that's the one I haven't. I would like to.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, it's quite. I'm going to say it anyway. Sure, I'm saying quite controversial things, but and I wasn't in this country that I did it, so I'm going to say ketamine cured my PTSD. I'm not saying people to go out and do
Awesome.
ketamine. It was very organized. It was done like ketamine. Just taking it recreationally will not do that for you. But if it's done correctly, you can absolutely cure traumas. Not cure, but find new ways to live with them. Your brain finds a way to deal with
Yeah.
them.
And I suppose in that, like you have some of your own traumas you carried from early childhood, and you say that kind of
Hmm.
manifested even in your autoimmune diseases,
Yeah.
possibly. But ketamine helped overcome that because I suppose, is it similar? I've never tried ketamine no myself, but would it be similar to, like, say, MDMA? Is it that it just lowers these barriers, these self-defense barriers we put up subconsciously, or how
I
would
don't
you
know if I would
describe it?
compare it to MDMA. It's more, I think, along the lines of a DMT experience in the
MT.
sense it's a
Okay.
very much a journey.
Okay.
Like for me, it was a journey into myself that I went, and I was with people who were trained, who were allowed me to do this
Mhm.
journey, and in that journey that I went on, it was the most healing experience I've ever felt. I've never felt so connected to myself as a person
Okay,
ever.
and the people who were there with you, so you were saying it was in a very controlled setting. So excuse me, were they therapists, or were
It
they
was a therapist and a nurse.
a
Yeah,
therapist and a nurse? Oh, excellent.
yeah,
Okay. Oh no, that's amazing. I know some friends who done some ketamine studies on for depression.
yeah,
There's some promising things there shown for ketamine and
yes.
depression as well. But I suppose those two people that were there, did they play much a role, or were they just there to observe you and make sure you are
It was
taken care of?
observing and
It was observing.
safekeeping,
Okay.
Yeah.
There was no real guidance or anything. Like, the therapist wasn't
No,
guiding. It was all the
no.
healing was done yourself, I suppose, is what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. It was all that's
And space to kind of
mhm.
explore it. I did talk through some of it, but a lot of
Yeah.
it was visual inside.
Yeah.
And then there was like space to talk through it as well.
Well,
So
I
it's
suppose,
but you need to be very safe. You need to be
yeah.
with the right people. Like you can't just go, oh, let me try ketamine for my
No.
PTSD. Like it doesn't work like
No.
that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of promise. There's a huge amount of promise out
I
there.
suppose just with yourself, there would have been pre-work. You would have done work with the therapist before the
Yes.
experience, and then you would have
Yes.
had a reintegration, and after the
Yeah.
experience again, maybe one or two, three, four. I don't know how many sessions, but it would have probably been just discussing everything that went on within that. That's correct. So yeah.
Yeah. And
Cool.
even when I stopped using the ketamine, I did another 6 months therapy afterwards to to go through everything, to process everything that I went through. And
Cool.
it was life changing,
Wow,
life
that's
changing.
that's really cool, because it's like, if that was any other kind of drug out there, like, they wouldn't be happy about that. That they can only give you one dose and you're good.
I
That's
know.
really
And
kind
here
of.
I am 5 years later.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. It's crazy. I tried DMT going back many years ago, and I used to always suffer with nighttime anxiety, and it used to cause me
Yeah.
insomnia when I used to worry about death and the afterlife. And I suppose I was
Oh,
brought up
yeah.
Catholic, so I have an idea of heaven and hell
Yeah.
and stuff like this. So I used to always be worrying, especially after my first child was born, as to, like, what if she doesn't get into heaven? What if I don't and she does? I'm like, all these weird thoughts circling in my head.
Yeah.
And I tried DMT one time after doing like a year and a half of researching it, listened to all sorts of stories about it, and I've never once had a nighttime anxiety around
You
death and
see?
the afterlife. I was like, and I hate using the word cured, but I was
I
cured
know,
of it.
same. But
I hate
yeah.
you, but I was certainly cured of it. I don't worry
Yeah.
about those thoughts that were worrying me for so long. From the time of my child being born up until that time when I tried DMT, I believe she would have been about 5 at the time, so about 5 years of
Wow,
suffering. Like,
amazing.
yeah, it was
Fair play to you
crazy.
for doing for taking that like chance. You know, a lot of
Mhm.
people are too afraid, but the results are just
Yeah,
undeniable.
yeah, definitely. Like, but certainly it's interesting with these substances. Like, I don't know about ketamine, would it fit that bill? But with DMT, it's almost as if there's something inbuilt in it that it would push you away from actually abusing it. Like, it's very hard to abuse DMT. You wouldn't be doing DMT every weekend. Like, it's not a party drug, so to speak. I definitely know people who've partied with ketamine, I suppose. Um,
Yeah, but like I think for the benefit like of doing for the way I did it, like you have to go into the K hole. You're not just getting like high on ketamine. You're going
yeah,
into the K hole.
one deep.
You're going deep,
Hmm.
you know. And ketamine only when it's taken that way, like that takes you deep, is it like DMT? Do you know?
Hmm.
Because but like I watched this documentary on Vice, because Vice cover all different types of
That's right. Yeah.
drugs. It's always, honest recollections. And there was a guy on it. He had done like DMT, all these different things, but he was saying ketamine was one of this. He figured it was a super drug, and it was
Mhm.
a way for him to really get in touch with the universe and the energies and everything. And he was like ketamine, but he said it had to be at this certain milligram. You have to keep topping it up, topping it up, topping it up, and you got to get to this certain milligram. When you get to that certain point, if you're able to get to it, then your brain like frees you of everything. This was his
Mhm.
experience. Like, it was almost religious for him.
Yeah.
Um, and like, so it just says that there is more. But when Vice were doing it, they tried to figure out how ketamine is synthesized, because we don't actually fully know. There's only a few places that apparently do it in the world. Like there's a place in Asia, I think in India was one of them. But they couldn't get anybody to show Vice
Yeah.
how to synthesize it. So we don't fully know exactly through the synthesization process what it does and
Mhm.
what that does to us.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say what exactly ketamine is
Yeah. Well, and I suppose in terms of
from
psychedelics,
that
it
perspective, in
is it
terms of
is
psychedelics.
relatively
Yeah.
new. Yeah. But certainly there's others that have been around for thousands of years, and as you say, like DMT and ketamine, there seems to be kind of a likeness there in some
Hmm.
thing. But I again, until I try ketamine someday, hopefully under proper settings, I won't
Find
really
yourself
know.
liquid ketamine.
Liquid
Don't buy
ketamine.
the powdered.
Okay, good. Thanks for the advice.
And like get it from somebody who knows. Like I got it from a like a medical source. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. No, hopefully there might be an opportunity to partake in some research trial or something. I'd love to be participant in one of those. I applied for the one for DMT in London there not too long ago, but
oh,
unfortunately I
brilliant.
didn't get recruited.
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot of people probably
Would say
applying for
so.
things.
Yeah, I certainly
You
would.
follow Maps and Minds as well,
I did,
because they're
yeah.
two organizations, yeah, that they obviously advertise them all the time as well.
Yeah, no, Maps and Minds, they do some amazing stuff. We had Maps
Yeah,
as guests in CIT via video link back years ago, talking
brilliant.
about, yeah, they were doing it was the phase 3 MDMA trials that they were in talking to us about, and when they were using MDMA for the PTSD, I think it was that they were looking at that time.
Yeah,
I think they've come on and that's done very well now, and I don't know how far they are
yeah,
from marketing a product now, but hopefully soon. Hopefully soon.
amazing. Yeah, be
How
brilliant.
how far away do you think? I suppose I'm getting to the end of my questions now. But one of the last ones is how far away do you think we are from more sensible drug policies in Ireland? I suppose cannabis is one question, but maybe psychedelics then is a second. How far away do you think those are?
I think cannabis is definitely before psychedelics.
Mhm.
I think there's not enough of a global push even happening for the psychedelic movement
Yeah.
yet. Yet. I
But
mean, I think there's enough research that it's starting to happen.
yeah.
But cannabis, I think, is taking the forefront of the picture frame for the moment, especially within Ireland. How long? I don't think we're innovative enough to be, the first in Europe or whatever to do this. I think we follow trait when it comes
Mhm.
to our political decisions. We follow the UK, we follow America. Um, we don't follow a lot of other countries in Europe. They tend to be the places we go to.
Yeah.
We're lucky Biden is in now. We're if the push goes for federalization of legalization of cannabis, that will help us here. And I think at that point, I think the biggest thing, and strangely enough, that could go in our favor is Brexit for the UK and their economy. Because I think that actually could be the push for the UK to be like, okay, well, we need another source of revenue here that's going to really help our economy. And when they kind of step up and realize that, I think we will too, especially if it's brought into Northern Ireland. How are they going to stop it then? You know what I mean? Like if Northern Ireland has dispensaries because it's like legalized all through the UK, how is Ireland going to stop it?
Well,
so
I would look forward to that because I don't know if you remember my buddy only shared a story with me yesterday. It was the contraceptive train. It was back in the
everybody up
90s.
to boots in the Northern Ireland for
Yeah,
condoms.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so if the UK were to allow cannabis to be sold, like that would be the next one. It'd be the cannabis train, or maybe we'll get a bus and it'd be the cannabis.
The cannabis.
The cannabis.
You know what?
North.
I would love that for Northern Ireland though, because their economy would just fly up, and they deserve that because they get just left behind with everything. You know,
they definitely
that
do.
would be great for them.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. And I think I'd love to be able to go to the Irish government and say, see, I told you so. You should have done this before them, and now they have the head start.
Well, we're going to eventually going to have to say I told you so, because they're not going to listen to us.
Yeah,
they're not listening to us.
They
have to get on the streets.
No, I look forward to the event during next week. It's going to be Gino Kenny's event about decriminalizing all drugs with Dr. Carl Hart. I think that's going to do a lot for the conversation around drugs in Ireland. I hope it's really well attended. I really hope Frank Feighan and bloody Stephen Donnelly go to it. They're probably the most important people that should be going to it. They're probably just going to, they won't go near this thing, unfortunately.
I think they probably fear a backlash, too much of a backlash. Like right now, it's all about for them their political presence, and because there's not enough of a societal movement or jump yet on the side of cannabis. It's not a populist enough topic for them to go, hey, let me put my career on the line by saying I'm behind cannabis. It's just not there yet, but we need to get it. And that's why we need to do the normalization. We need to have these conversations. We need to have the information to pull from. But they can't ignore us forever.
No, definitely not. But like that kind of mentality, like that, there's people out there who won't support it now, and when it becomes a populist thing, they'll support it then. I just don't like those people. Like those people have got to go because they can't be trusted at all, because they're only doing things based upon their desire to keep their job. That shouldn't be it. They're getting elected to represent the people. And they should be doing the job to represent the people, not the job that's going to keep them in their position. And that's what I hate about party politics in this country. Really
it's beyond frustrating. And even like when you saw the same-sex marriage come in, I mean, Leo Varadkar was, Taoiseach, he's a gay man, and he used that as a populist thing. He used his own community for his career, in not a. So like I get what you mean, and it is really frustrating, and there's almost like a dirty element to it, but at the end of the day, they're just following behind us. We're the ones who know, we're educated, we're fighting, we're not going to shut up, we're going to keep smoking, I'm going to keep blowing those clouds. You've given me an idea. I want to send clouds every day now to Frank Feighan.
Yes.
And just keep doing stuff like that, and we just got to keep the momentum up. We just can't give up.
Excellent. I think that's a nice note there, a nice high end to the show. Unless there's anything else you'd like to add, because it's been an absolute pleasure to sit and chat with you here this morning. And
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, I hope someday we may be able to do this in person and get share some clouds.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And look, if there's any mothers out there and they want to see what I'm doing, I'm Enlightened Lady Toker on Instagram, and I review different CBD stuff. I'm going to start reviewing THC products as well, because people need to know how to use them too. But I'm going to do it on my Patreon because of the police.
Excellent.
But the CBD stuff will be there for anybody to see as well. And then I'm going to start reviewing THC because we need to know about these products.
So that's Enlightened Lady Toker on Instagram, and you're on Twitter as well under the same name.
As well, yeah.
Brilliant. Excellent. No, that definitely, people go give yourself a follow, and because it's one to be watched. Brilliant. Thanks again, Adrienne. It's been
Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a great day. Talk to you.
I'm just
Stay
gonna
high and stay happy and healthy.
yeah, indeed, stay blazed.
Stay blazed.
And there you go, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview there with Adrienne Lynch. It was an absolute pleasure to have her on the show. And again, just to remind you, it is Enlightened Lady Toker is where you will find her on Instagram and Twitter. So just to remind you guys, if you want to support the show, support the fight for cannabis legalisation in Ireland, don't forget to sign up to the patreon.com/Martin's World, or you can also make donations in the form of bitcoins through a link found on martinsworld.ie. So stay blazed out there, guys, and keep her lit. Peace.